Vulnerability is not a personality trait or a moment of disclosure. Instead, it is a leadership competency and a daily choice. You're listening to the Well-Led Podcast. This is Kate Johnson. Over the last 3 weeks, we've explored the idea that leading well requires a willingness to be human in front of other humans, to acknowledge mistakes, uncertainty, and limits without collapsing authority or credibility. Vulnerability is an act of care, a way leaders level the playing field, signal trust, and create space for honest work. It is not performative, nor is it reckless. It is intentional, grounded in self-awareness, and closely tied to the leader's ability to regulate themselves before asking anything of others. Let's be clear. Vulnerability is relational, not individualistic. When leaders withhold it, teams default to self-protection, competition, and silence. When leaders model it by owning missteps, sharing context, or naming what's hard, psychological safety becomes possible. Trust deepens. Collaboration improves. People are more willing to ask for help, offer ideas, and take responsible risks. Research, lived experience, and real workplace stories all point to the same conclusion. Vulnerability from the top sets the tone for how safe it is to be honest everywhere else. We do need to be careful to draw boundaries. Vulnerability is not oversharing, emotional dumping, or abdication of responsibility. It requires judgment, timing, and an understanding of context and culture. Vulnerability and competence are not opposites. They reinforce one another. Leaders who practice thoughtful vulnerability are more credible, more trustworthy, and ultimately more effective. In this way, vulnerability becomes less about exposure and more about courage. The courage to lead in a way that invites others to do their best work together. We've spent 3 weeks examining vulnerability, turning it over and considering multiple facets of this starting point for leading well. Why another week devoted to the same topic? Each month, I want to provide you with a final look at the current competency, a lesson in effectiveness that makes the concepts we discussed so far real, so that you can be an effective leader. Each of these lessons should be immediately and easily applicable. I mean, like turn off the show and go do the thing levels of application. And that means clarifying observable behaviors. In an earlier episode, I stated, anytime you choose to share a characteristic of your humanity, you are being vulnerable. To make this real and actionable, we need to parse out what the characteristics of your humanity actually are and what form sharing them can take. So what are the aspects of being human that leaders have to deal with? Well, for starters, fallibility, but also tenacity, tenderness, humor, fear, hunger, exhaustion, anger, sorrow, physical weaknesses, and strengths, ignorance, pride, aging, memory, regret, illness, envy, apathy, thirst, forgetfulness, impatience. I could go on. This list is enough, though, to remind us how complex humans are, and that, as is so often the case in leadership, you need to find balance and clarity. You see, I'm not advocating for unbridled displays of anger or impatience or other less savory aspects of the human condition. Sharing these in an observable way does not require you to be angry or impatient. It does mean being willing to own those parts of yourself. A vulnerable leader might say, I will admit, I've been impatient about this project, or I've struggled with anger and would appreciate any feedback if you see me showing my temper in our weekly meeting. Or let's take illness. We all experience it. Leaders who refuse to take time off when they're sick or to tell their teams that they are unwell are not being vulnerable. I've known people in leadership positions who have battled illnesses and never told their employees. These people have created confusion and uncertainty with their absence and silence, and they've missed the care and concern that people who see them almost every day could provide to help their healing. You can maintain your privacy and still communicate the news of a sick day or even a major diagnosis. Just the words, "I'm sick," reveal humanity. Choosing to share your better nature can be as subtle and simple as this too. I like tenderness as an aspect of humanity here. Leaders can demonstrate tender feelings with words and deeds. Let's imagine your team has faced a significant challenge. Maybe a popular employee has experienced a death in her family at the same time that a major project is coming due. The team is not only short-handed as a result of her absence, they're grieving for her too. They're working long hours to meet the deadline, and the atmosphere in the office is sorrowful. It's just a hard time for everyone. A leader who chooses to be vulnerable and demonstrate tenderness in this situation might take the initiative to arrange for meals to be brought in, both for the absent employee and the team. They might take a few minutes every day to walk the floor and check in with each person. They could say, "This is hard." They could ask, "What would make this easier for everyone?" Not every workplace may support this, but gentle touch, hugs, and other gestures can be visible ways to show you care. Letting yourself feel the hard things when they happen and acknowledging that others may have the same feelings not only demonstrates vulnerability, it creates unity and deepens relationships. In an earlier episode this month, I gave you a list of actions, what vulnerability can look like. Let's revisit some of those now with more examples of what you might say or do. Admitting ignorance or a gap in your knowledge. This can be as simple as saying, "I don't know." And I get it, this can be really hard. Most of us who end up in leadership got there because we had the answers. So "I don't know" can feel like it's not part of your vocabulary. But it can be the easiest, lowest risk, no cost method of demonstrating that you are human. And it makes it possible for someone else to fill in what you don't know, or for you to learn something new, or to delegate the research. Whatever comes right after "I don't know," it means you and your team aren't moving forward with bad or missing information. Developing the habit of owning your mistakes. This could look like a straightforward apology, or it could take the form of correcting the mistake or making the person whole. Say you goofed on an employee's time card and their paycheck was wrong. Rather than leaving this person on his own to talk to payroll or just wait for the next paycheck to fix things, you could apologize and take the necessary steps to fix things on his behalf. I would also recommend running a quick debrief with yourself after all is said and done to determine if this was a one-time goof or if you need more training or a different approach to the payroll process. Taking the time to learn from your mistakes not only demonstrates vulnerability, it means you may not have to live through the same mistake again. Accepting negative feedback with gratitude and no defensiveness. Leader, anytime someone gives you feedback, the first words out of your mouth should be, "Thank you." You may deeply disagree with what you heard. You might be hurt or embarrassed. I understand. And vulnerability means that you are open. Starting with "thank you" helps you remember this and keeps you open to hearing and learning from the feedback. This is especially true if the feedback comes from an employee. Reacting and shutting down will only mean that that employee will never offer feedback again. Building teams and partnerships that fill in your skill gaps. Leaders who always hire someone just like themselves are, whether they know it or not, presenting an attitude of being invulnerable. They signal that they think who they are and how they work are the only and best ways to do the job. They don't admit that it could look different or be better. Vulnerable leaders see that they don't know it all and can't do it all, and this gives them understanding of the importance of pulling together a team that can fully meet the needs of the business. You may be great at forecasting budgets, but struggle when it comes to project management. Do you need to do that work yourself? Or can you find an employee who has the skills and training you lack? When you have the opportunity to start or add to your team, you will always benefit if you step back and assess the current state of skills and abilities, and then hire accordingly. Sharing hopes for the future. Being willing to say, I hope or I want, demonstrates that you experience the very human emotion of yearning. I hope to retire in 5 years so I can have more time with my family. I want to be a C-suite leader within the next 7 years. When we admit to having hope, we let people see that we have internal lives and the desire for more or different. Granting others insight into your dreams or ambitions is a simple way to be remarkably vulnerable. Let me acknowledge something. While I do advocate for the benefits of vulnerability, connections, trust, and the like, there is also a cost. Vulnerable people can be hurt. It can take an emotional toll on you to share the soft places. You may experience mental, emotional, or even physical fatigue as a result of being vulnerable. Choosing to be vulnerable also means monitoring yourself for any signs of exhaustion or burnout. I won't go into an extensive review of self-care practices, but I do want to share a few recommendations for techniques for being vulnerable without burning out. The first is debriefing. This can take several forms. You might pause and review the experience with yourself, asking what went well, what you may have done differently, and what you will do the next time. You can also choose to do this with a trusted peer or your own manager. Incorporating a debrief into your practice after interpersonal interactions, particularly those that have strong emotions, is a way of building your vulnerability muscle, making it easier to do over time and with sustainable results. It doesn't have to be complicated or overly time-consuming. Just a moment to say, I felt vulnerable in that moment. Well, how did it go? Also consider practicing decompression. Sometimes you need to step away and breathe. If you're monitoring yourself and using your self-awareness, you will see moments when you are tense or anxious. These can be signs that you are experiencing the cost of vulnerability. Practices like box breathing, guided meditation, or just stepping outside for a short walk can all help you regulate your emotions in these situations. The final technique I want to cover today is reflection. I am a fan of writing things down, and journaling is an effective way to address the mental and emotional costs of vulnerability. And you can do this several ways: a straightforward record of the events, taking some of the mental load of the experience out of your brain and putting it on paper. Or you can spend a set amount of time writing in a stream of consciousness, letting your thoughts flow on the page. Or you can use prompts to guide your written word. Blending the other techniques with this one, you can ask yourself debrief-style questions or take a decompress-like approach and name what you are experiencing and feeling. I have compiled a 1-page download with these practices and a few other notes, and you can find a link in the show notes to get your copy. Here is the key takeaway from this month's study of vulnerability. It is important to leadership, and it is a choice. Being vulnerable is scary. It is literally exposing yourself to the potential for harm. And you can choose it. Choose what, when, and how you make yourself vulnerable. Or you can choose not to be vulnerable. As a leader, your choices will impact your path, but they also define the experience of your employees. Choosing vulnerability affects other people, just like every choice you make when you lead. Once you have acknowledged your fears, weaknesses, and overall humanity, and made a choice about what you will reveal, it's then time to turn your attention from yourself to the people who follow you. And this is why we will begin to investigate the need for empathy in leadership next week. Thank you for listening to the Well-Led Podcast. I'm Kate Johnson, and I appreciate you making time today to consider your leadership practices. If you found this episode useful, you can support the show by following or subscribing on your preferred podcast platforms. It helps other leaders find these conversations. And if you're open to it, leaving a quick rating or review goes a long way. We'll be back next Tuesday with an episode introducing next month's topic, Demonstrating Care with Empathy. If you want updates on episodes, resources, and upcoming offerings from 123 Limited, you can join the newsletter at any time. For more tools and perspectives on leading well, especially in the space where results and humanity meet, visit 123limited.com. Thanks again for being here. I look forward to continuing the conversation next week.